He had everything money could buy: power, influence, an empire built on broken hearts. But when death finally knocked on his door, none of it mattered. Because the only person who could save him was the little girl he abandoned years ago. The daughter he pretended never existed. The rain fell steadily against the glass walls of the private hospital suite, each drop sliding down like time slipping away. Machines hummed softly, their rhythmic beeping the only proof that Victor Harrington was still alive. The billionaire lay motionless on the bed, his once commanding presence reduced to a pale body surrounded by wires, tubes, and silent fear. Victor Harrington was a name that carried weight across continents. He was known as ruthless, calculating, and unstoppable. A man who turned nothing into billions. A man who crushed competitors without hesitation. A man who believed emotions were weaknesses and attachments were liabilities. His empire was built with sharp decisions and colder goodbyes. But now, at 62, Victor Harrington was dying. Doctors moved quietly around the room, their expressions tight, professional, but deeply concerned. The rare condition attacking his body was aggressive, unpredictable, and cruel. His organs were failing one by one, and no amount of money could buy a solution. "We've tried everything," one doctor whispered to another. "The only option left is extremely unlikely." Victor's younger brother, Thomas Harrington, stood near the window, fists clenched, heart pounding. Unlike Victor, Thomas had always believed in family, forgiveness, and second chances. And for years, he had carried a secret Victor never wanted to hear. "What do you mean, unlikely?" Thomas asked, turning sharply. The doctor hesitated, then spoke carefully. "There is one potential donor match. A biological match, so rare that it only occurs within immediate family. A child." Thomas felt his breath catch. He already knew the answer, but hearing it spoken felt like reopening an old wound. "A daughter," the doctor continued. "His daughter." The room fell silent. Victor Harrington had a daughter, but the world didn't know her. And Victor had spent his entire life pretending she never existed. 25 years earlier, Victor Harrington was not yet a billionaire. He was ambitious, hungry, and already ruthless. When a young woman named Elena came into his life, she believed she had found a man with dreams and determination. She loved him deeply. She believed in him when he had nothing. When Elena became pregnant, Victor saw only risk. A child meant distraction, responsibility, vulnerability. He offered money, a lot of it, enough to disappear quietly. Elena refused, so Victor walked away. No goodbye, no explanation, no support. When the baby girl was born, Victor Harrington was already climbing the ladder of wealth, never once looking back. Elena named the child Lily. Lily grew up poor, but never unloved. Her mother worked long hours cleaning houses, sewing clothes, doing whatever it took. She taught Lily dignity, kindness, and strength. She never poisoned Lily's heart with hatred toward her father, but she never lied either. "He chose not to be here," Elena would say gently. "That was his choice. But it doesn't define who you are." When Lily was 10, Elena fell ill. By the time Lily turned 12, her mother was gone. The world became colder overnight. Lily moved in with her aunt in a cramped apartment, learned to survive with little, and grew up fast. She studied hard, worked part-time jobs, and carried herself with quiet pride. She never begged, never complained, never asked about the father who abandoned her. To Lily, he was a shadow, a name without a face. Back in the hospital, Thomas Harrington stood alone in the hallway, staring at the floor. He had tried many times over the years to convince Victor to acknowledge his daughter. Each time, Victor shut him down with icy finality. She doesn't exist, Victor would say. That chapter's closed. Now that chapter was the only thing keeping him alive. Thomas made the call himself, not to protect Victor, but to give Lily the choice her father never gave her. When Lily answered the phone, she was finishing a shift at a small community clinic where she worked as a nursing assistant. Her hands smelled of antiseptic. Her feet ached. Her life was simple, honest, and far removed from luxury. "Hello," she said cautiously. "Lily, my name is Thomas Harrington," the voice said. "I'm your uncle." Silence filled the line. "I know this is sudden," Thomas continued, voice trembling. "But your father is dying." Lily felt the air leave her lungs. She had imagined many things in life, but never this call. "My father," she said slowly. "He has a rare condition." "There's only one possible way to save him," Thomas said. "And that way is you." Lily's hands shook. "You abandoned us," she said quietly. "He abandoned us." "I know," Thomas replied. "And I will never defend what he did. But this decision, it's yours." After the call ended, Lily sat alone in the empty locker room, staring at the wall. Memories she never asked for came rushing back. Her mother crying silently at night, the hunger, the struggle, the questions she stopped asking because they hurt too much. The man who caused all of that was now asking for her life to save his. She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Lily stood at the gates of the most expensive hospital in the city, her worn shoes standing in sharp contrast to the polished marble floors. She carried no anger on her face, but inside, a storm raged. When she entered Victor's room, she stopped. The man on the bed was not the monster she had imagined. He looked small, fragile, human. Victor Harrington opened his eyes slowly. And for the first time in his life, he looked at the daughter he abandoned. Tears filled his eyes before words ever could. Victor Harrington stared at the young woman standing at the foot of his bed, and for a moment, the machines around him seemed to fade into silence. His chest tightened, not from the illness this time, but from something far more painful. Recognition came not from memory, but from resemblance. Her eyes carried Elena's softness. Her posture held a quiet strength he had never allowed himself to admire. Lily did not move closer. She did not rush to his side, nor did she turn away. She simply stood there, arms loosely folded, as if grounding herself. "I didn't know what you'd look like," she said calmly. "But I knew I wouldn't recognize you." Victor swallowed hard. His voice, once capable of silencing boardrooms, trembled when he finally spoke. "You shouldn't be here." "That's funny," Lily replied, her tone steady but edged with truth. "That's exactly what you decided years ago." Thomas stood near the door, watching silently, knowing this moment did not belong to him. Doctors lingered just outside, giving space to something medicine could not handle. Victor closed his eyes briefly. "I made mistakes." "Mistakes are forgetting birthdays," Lily said, "not abandoning a child." Her words landed softly, yet they struck deeper than any accusation shouted in anger. Victor opened his eyes again, tears spilling freely now. He had faced hostile takeovers without blinking. But this broke him. "I was afraid," he whispered. Lily let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but not quite. "So was my mother. Every day. But she stayed." The silence that followed was heavy, layered with years of absence, unspoken questions, and pain that had learned how to survive quietly. Thomas cleared his throat gently. "Lily, the doctors need to run some tests, just to confirm compatibility." She nodded without looking away from Victor. "I'll do the tests," she said. "That doesn't mean anything else yet." Victor nodded slowly. He had no right to ask for more. The tests took hours. Blood samples, scans, Long waits in sterile rooms that smelled of antiseptic and tension. Lily sat alone afterward, staring at her hands, remembering her mother's voice, her warmth, the way she had always said, "Kindness doesn't mean weakness." Victor lay awake in his room, staring at the ceiling, replaying his life like a cruel film reel. The deals, the betrayals, the relationships cut short, the woman he once loved and the child he convinced himself he didn't need. When the doctor finally returned, his expression was serious but hopeful. "She's a perfect match," he said quietly. Victor closed his eyes, relief and shame crashing into each other. Thomas found Lily in the hospital cafeteria later that evening. She was stirring a cup of tea she hadn't touched. "You can save him," he said gently, "if you choose to." Lily looked up. "And if I don't?" Thomas nodded. "That is also your right." That night, Lily walked through the city streets, letting the cold air clear her thoughts. She passed glowing restaurants, luxury cars, people laughing without worry. Somewhere among them was the world Victor built, a world that never had room for her. She thought of her childhood apartment, of sharing one blanket in winter, of her mother apologizing for things that were never her fault, of nights when Lily pretended not to be hungry so her mother could eat. And now the man responsible lay surrounded by wealth, yet utterly powerless. The next morning, Lily returned to the hospital. Victor was awake when she entered. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said immediately, his voice weak but honest. "And I won't insult you by begging. I just want you to know, I see you now, and I'm sorry." Lily pulled a chair closer and sat down for the first time. "You know what hurts the most?" she asked quietly. "Not that you left, but that you never looked back. Not once." Victor nodded slowly. "I thought if I never acknowledged it, I wouldn't feel it." "Did it work?" Lily asked. "No," he whispered. "It hollowed me out." She studied him for a long moment, then asked, "If you live, what happens then?" Victor hesitated. "I don't know," he admitted. "But if I survive, I don't want to run anymore." Lily stood up. "I'll donate," she said simply. Victor's breath caught. "Why?" She met his eyes. "Not for you. For me. I won't let your choices define my heart." Tears streamed freely down Victor's face. For the first time, he understood the difference between power and grace. The surgery was scheduled for the following day. As Lily lay in the hospital bed that night, fear crept in, not of the procedure, but of what came after. Healing wasn't just physical. It was emotional, and some wounds took longer to face. Victor, in his room across the hall, signed documents with trembling hands. Not business contracts, but personal ones. He rewrote his will. He established foundations. He set aside everything that no longer mattered. When the time came, Lily was wheeled into the operating room, bright lights blurring above her. She closed her eyes, thinking of her mother, of strength, of choosing compassion without surrendering dignity. Hours passed. When Victor woke up in recovery, the first thing he did was ask, "Is she okay?" "Yes," the nurse said softly. "She's resting." Victor turned his face to the side and wept silently. He had built an empire alone, but for the first time, he felt something stronger than wealth, gratitude mixed with a hope he didn't deserve, but desperately wanted to earn. Victor Harrington woke to a strange sensation he had not felt in decades: peace. It was faint, fragile, and unfamiliar, but it was there. The steady beeping of the heart monitor told him he was alive, yet something inside him felt newly awakened, as if surviving had forced his soul to catch up with his body. His first clear thought was Lily. "Is she awake?" he asked the nurse the moment he could speak. "She is," the nurse replied gently. "She asked the same about you." Victor turned his head slowly toward the window. Sunlight spilled across the room, soft and forgiving, as if the world itself was offering him another chance. For the first time in his life, he did not think about stock prices, rival companies, or power. He thought about a little girl growing up without a father, learning strength because she had no choice. Lily woke in a quieter room, her body heavy, her side aching. She pressed her hand against the bandage and winced, then let out a slow breath. The pain was real, but manageable. What surprised her more was the calm in her chest. She had expected regret, or anger, or confusion. Instead, she felt lighter. Thomas sat beside her bed, holding a cup of water. "You scared us," he said softly. "I scared myself," Lily replied with a faint smile. "You did something extraordinary," Thomas said. "Something most people wouldn't." Lily shook her head slowly. "I didn't do it to be extraordinary. I did it so I could sleep at night." Later that afternoon, Victor was wheeled into Lily's room. The doctors hesitated, but Lily nodded when they asked if she was ready. The moment Victor saw her lying there, pale but awake, guilt slammed into him harder than any physical pain. "I took something from you again," he said hoarsely. "No," Lily replied. "This time I chose." He nodded, tears forming again. "Thank you doesn't feel like enough." "It isn't," Lily said honestly. "But it's a start." The days that followed were slow. Recovery demanded patience, something Victor had never mastered. He learned to wait, for strength, for healing, for Lily to speak when she was ready. Sometimes she talked, sometimes she didn't, and he learned to accept both. Lily watched him closely. She saw how he listened now, how his eyes softened when nurses spoke to him, how he no longer barked orders, no longer demanded control. Illness had stripped him of his armor, leaving only a man forced to face himself. One afternoon, Lily broke the silence. "Do you know why I didn't hate you growing up?" Victor looked at her, afraid of the answer. "Because my mother wouldn't let me," she continued. "She said hatred would give you power over my life, even in your absence." Victor closed his eyes. "She was a better person than I ever was." "She was," Lily agreed. "But she believed people could change. Even you." The words settled deep inside him. When they were both discharged weeks later, the world outside felt different. Victor stepped into his luxury car and hesitated. "Come with me," he said suddenly. Lily raised an eyebrow. "To where?" "To see where you live," he said. "If you're willing." She considered it, then nodded. "Okay, but don't expect me to be impressed." Her apartment was small, modest, filled with second-hand furniture and warmth. Victor stepped inside and felt something tighten in his chest. This was the life his daughter had built without him. Simple, honest, real. "This is home," Lily said quietly. "It's beautiful," Victor replied, and for once he meant it. Over dinner, they spoke more openly than ever before. Victor told her about his childhood, poverty, a distant father, a fear of becoming weak. Lily listened, not to excuse him, but to understand. Understanding, she realized, didn't erase pain, but it softened its edges. Weeks turned into months. Victor made changes no one expected. He stepped back from daily control of his empire. He started funding clinics like the one Lily worked in. He listened more than he spoke. The media noticed. Headlines questioned his transformation. Analysts speculated. But Victor didn't care. One evening, he stood outside Lily's apartment, holding an envelope. "I want to help you," he said. "With school. With anything." Lily looked at the envelope but didn't take it. "I don't want your money," she said gently. "I want your presence. If you disappear again, that will hurt more than being poor ever did." Victor nodded slowly and put the envelope away. "Then I'll stay." And he did. He showed up. To small dinners. To awkward conversations. To quiet moments that mattered more than grand gestures. He learned that love wasn't proven through wealth, but through consistency. Yet forgiveness was not a straight line. One night, Lily finally let herself cry. All the years she had held it together poured out. The loneliness, the questions, the ache of wondering why she wasn't enough. Victor held his head in his hands, listening, not defending himself, not interrupting, just listening. "I can't undo what I did," he said when she finished. "But I will spend whatever time I have left proving that you matter." Lily wiped her tears. "That's all I ever wanted." But fate, cruel as ever, was not finished. During a routine checkup, doctors found complications. The transplant had saved Victor's life, but long-term recovery was uncertain. His body was fragile. Time, once endless, now felt finite. Victor told Lily the truth. "I don't know how long I have," he said quietly. Lily felt fear rise again, but this time, she didn't run. "Then we don't waste it," she said. For the first time, Victor smiled, not the sharp smile of a billionaire, but the gentle smile of a father who finally understood what mattered. Time began to move differently after that conversation. It no longer felt like something Victor Harrington could command or bend to his will. Each day became something fragile, something to be handled with care. For the first time in his life, he woke up not with a list of deals to close, but with a simple question in his mind. How do I show up today? Lily noticed the change before anyone else did. Victor started calling her every morning, not to check her schedule or offer help, but simply to ask how she slept. Sometimes their conversations were short, filled with comfortable pauses. Other times they talked for hours, about her work at the clinic, about her mother, about things Victor had never allowed himself to notice before, like the way the city sounded early in the morning or how people smiled differently when they felt seen. One afternoon, Victor asked a question he had avoided for months. "Do you ever wish you had grown up with me?" Lily didn't answer right away. She stared out the window of her apartment, watching children play in the street below. "I used to," she said finally, "when I was very young. But if I had, I might not be the person I am now." Victor nodded, absorbing the weight of that truth. "I miss knowing you," he said. "But worse, I miss becoming someone worthy of you." Lily turned toward him. "You're trying now. That matters." As Victor's health stabilized, he made a decision that shocked his board of directors. He announced he would be stepping down as CEO, handing over control to a successor he trusted. The media exploded with speculation. Some called it weakness, others suspected hidden motives. Victor didn't correct them. He had spent his life proving he was powerful. Now he wanted to prove he was present. He began volunteering quietly at the very clinic where Lily worked, sitting in waiting rooms, listening to patients, funding treatments anonymously. No cameras. No press. Just service. One evening, as they walked home together, Lily said, "You know, people here don't know who you are." Victor smiled faintly. "That might be my greatest achievement." But healing, Lily learned, was never clean or complete. Some days, old anger resurfaced unexpectedly. A passing memory. A careless comment. A moment when Victor forgot and spoke with the authority he once wore like armor. During one such moment, Lily snapped. "You don't get to talk to me like that," she said sharply. "Not now. Not ever." Victor froze, shame flooding his face. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm sorry." That apology, simple, immediate, without justification, meant more to Lily than she expected. It told her that he was learning. Still, the world had its own way of testing them. One morning, Lily arrived at the clinic to find reporters waiting. Someone had leaked her identity. Headlines splashed her face across screens. Billionaire's secret daughter saved his life. Patients stared. Strangers whispered. Her quiet world shattered overnight. That night, Lily confronted Victor. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said, voice shaking. "Your world doesn't know how to be gentle." Victor looked devastated. "I didn't tell anyone. I swear." "I know," Lily said. "But this is the cost of being connected to you." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll do whatever you need. I'll disappear if that's what protects you." Lily took a deep breath. "I don't want you to disappear. I want boundaries." They worked through it together. Victor issued a firm public statement, taking full responsibility, demanding privacy for Lily and threatening legal action against further intrusion. For the first time, he used his power not to dominate but to shield. Gradually, the attention faded. One quiet evening, Lily brought out an old box. Inside were faded photos, school drawings, letters her mother had written but never sent. "She wrote these for you," Lily said. "She never mailed them." Victor's hands trembled as he read Elena's words, hopeful, hurt, forgiving in ways he had never deserved. "I would have forgiven you," Victor whispered, "if you'd ask." Lily placed a hand on his arm. She already did. As winter approached, Victor's health began to decline again. Fatigue set in. Hospital visits became more frequent. Lily moved closer, rearranging her life without resentment. One night, Victor asked, "Are you afraid of losing me?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, but not in the way I expected. I'm afraid of losing what we're building." Victor reached for her hand. "Then promise me something." "What?" "Live fully, whether I'm here or not." She squeezed his hand. "Only if you promise not to give up." "I won't," he said. "Not anymore." On his birthday, Victor didn't throw a party. Instead, he invited Lily and a few close people to a small dinner. No speeches, no gifts, just quiet laughter. At the end of the night, Victor raised his glass. "To second chances," he said. Lily smiled softly. "And to choosing love, even when it's hard." But deep down, both of them sensed the truth. Their time together, though precious, was limited. And the final lesson was still to come. The final weeks arrived quietly, without drama or warning. Victor Harrington had lived a life of noise. Phones ringing, deals closing, voices demanding his attention, but now his world softened into something almost sacred. Mornings were slower. Breathing took effort. Even smiling cost him strength. Yet his eyes were clearer than they had ever been. Lily noticed everything. She learned the rhythm of his good days and bad days. On good days, he would sit by the window, sunlight warming his face, and ask her about the smallest details of her life. What made her laugh at work, which patient reminded her of her mother, what dreams still scared her. On bad days, he barely spoke, and Lily would read to him, sometimes from books, sometimes from her own memories, filling the silence with proof that he was not alone. One evening, as rain traced familiar lines down the glass, Victor spoke with effort. "Do you know what I regret most?" Lily looked up from her chair. "There are many answers to that." Victor smiled faintly. "That I taught myself to survive but never how to love." Lily set the book aside and moved closer. "You're learning now." "Too late?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Love doesn't measure time the way we do." The doctors were honest when they spoke to Lily privately. The transplant had given Victor a gift, not a guarantee. His body was tired. He was fading not in pain but in certainty. There would be no miracle this time. When Lily told Victor the truth, he nodded as if he had already known. "I'm not afraid," he said. "I just don't want to leave things unfinished." So they finished them together. Victor wrote letters to people he had hurt, to employees he had overlooked, to a daughter he was still learning how to speak to without fear. He dismantled parts of his empire that no longer aligned with the man he had become, redirecting resources toward places that healed instead of consumed. But the most important conversations happened late at night. "Do you forgive me?" Victor asked one night, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily didn't answer immediately. She had learned that forgiveness was not a switch, it was a journey. "I forgive you for who you were," she said finally. "And I'm grateful for who you became." Tears slid down Victor's temples into his hair. He didn't wipe them away. "That's more than I deserve," he said. "It's not about deserving," Lily replied. "It's about choosing peace." On his final morning, Victor asked to be moved to the window. The sky was clear, pale blue, endless. Lily sat beside him, holding his hand, feeling how light it had become in hers. "Stay," he murmured, eyes half closed. "I'm here," she said. "No," he whispered. "Stay like this. With me." She leaned closer, resting her forehead gently against his. For a moment, the world held its breath. "I used to think legacy was what people said about you after you died," Victor said softly. "Now I know it's who you love while you're alive." Lily closed her eyes. "Then you're leaving something real." Victor exhaled slowly. His grip loosened. And with a final breath, Victor Harrington, billionaire, tyrant, father, was gone. Lily stayed where she was long after the machines went silent. Grief came in waves, not just for the man she lost, but for the years they never had. Yet beneath the sorrow was something steady and warm. Healing. Closure. At the funeral, the world gathered. Powerful people, important faces, whispered stories of a ruthless legend. But Lily stood apart, dressed simply, watching as the empire mourned a man they never truly knew. They spoke of his success. She remembered his growth. Months later, Lily returned to her work at the clinic. Life moved forward, gentler now. She spoke openly about her past, not as a wound, but as a testament. She funded scholarships in her mother's name. She volunteered more than ever. Victor's wealth became a tool, not of power, but of purpose. One afternoon, Lily received a letter Victor had written, but never given her. "If you're reading this, it means I ran out of time. I want you to know that saving my life did more than keep my heart beating. It taught it how to feel. You didn't just give me a second chance. You showed me who I could have been. And because of you, I finally became him." Lily folded the letter carefully, pressing it to her chest. She stepped outside into the sunlight, breathing deeply. The little girl who had been abandoned no longer carried that identity. She was the woman who chose compassion without surrendering her dignity. The daughter who saved a life, but more importantly, reclaimed her own. And somewhere beyond wealth, beyond regret, beyond time itself, a man finally understood that forgiveness was the greatest fortune of all. If this story touched your heart, remember this. Money can build empires, but only love can heal what pride destroys. Sometimes, the greatest redemption doesn't come from success, but from humility and the courage to face the people we once walked away from. If you believe forgiveness can change lives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. More powerful, emotional stories are coming. Stories about loss, hope, second chances, and the quiet strength of the human heart. Until next time, remember, it's never too late to choose love.